Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make the Dreampuffs blanket, a free pattern found on mooglyblog.com. This pattern comes in several sizes, so for specific stitch counts and row counts, please do go to the link in the description. We'll be using Lion Brand's Scarfie and a USK hook. This one is by Furls, and it's a 6.5 millimeter. Now, let's get started. So to begin the Dreampuffs blanket, I've got a slip knot on my hook, and I'm going to chain a multiple of 4 plus 2. Now, for exact chain counts and row counts, once again, you'll need to look at the link in the description. For purposes of demonstration, we'll just make a little swatch. So let's chain together. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the first repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my second repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's my third repeat, which should be enough for demoing our stitches today. And then I just need the plus 2, 1 and 2. So I'm ready to begin crocheting row 1. I'm going to skip the chain closest to the hook, and going into the chain after that, I'm going to begin my first repeat. I like to work into the back hump of the chain, but that's just a personal preference, and you can work into whichever part of the chain you prefer. So in that second chain, I'll make a single crochet. There we are. Then I'll chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I work a puff stitch in that same stitch. And here's how we make the puff stitch for this pattern. And it's important to point out at this point that there are different kinds of puff stitches. There's lots of ways to make them, so you need to check the instructions for each pattern. This is how we make them for this pattern. I yarn over, I go back into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop with 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, go back in that stitch again, pull up another loop, and here now we've got 5 loops left on the hook, so it's time to yarn over and pull that through all 5 loops. And that finishes our puff stitch. Then we chain 1 and skip the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. That's our first repeat, and we're going to do that all again, starting in the next chain right here. So we skip 1, 2, 3. In the next one, we'll work a single crochet, followed by a chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then a puff stitch in that same chain. Once again, that's yarn over, go back in that stitch again, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, go back in the stitch again, yarn over and pull up another loop, and then with 5 loops left on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 5 loops. Chain 1 and skip the next 3 stitches. And we'll just continue doing that all the way across until we get to the end. So we've got one more repeat for our little swatch here. So I will single crochet, chain 3, and work a puff stitch right in that same stitch. With my 5 loops left on the hook there, I will yarn over and pull through, chain 1, and skip 3. 1, 2, 3. There we are. That leaves 1 chain left at the very end, so we single crochet in that very last chain. There we are. And that is how you make row 1 of the Dreampuffs blanket. Let's begin row 2. To begin row 2, we're going to start with a chain of 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. There we are. Then I will work a puff stitch right in that very first stitch. That last single crochet we made, that's the first stitch that we can work into. So we can make a puff stitch right there, like so. With 5 loops on the hook, I know it's time to yarn over and pull through and make our chain 1. And then what we're going to do is work a single crochet, chain 3, puff stitch in each chain 3 space across. So that chain 3 we made in the middle of the repeat, sticking up here in this nice little arch, we can just go right into that space. Work a single crochet, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then a puff stitch right back in that same chain 3 space. There we are. Of course, finish it with a chain 1, and then come on over to the next one. Single crochet, 1, 2, 3, puff stitch right back down in that chain 3 space. There we are, and chain 1. And we want to continue this all the way across until we get to that last chain 3 space right here at the end. And then in that last chain 3 space, we'll work a single crochet, followed by a chain 2, 1, 2, and then a puff stitch, all in that last chain 3 space. And then we finish that off with a double crochet in that very first single crochet we made back at the beginning of the pattern, before our very first chain 3. That one can be hard to find, but it'll be that very last stitch that we made in row 1, or well, the first one made in row 1, the last one we come to in row 2. So something to point out here, you'll notice in row 1 we had 3 puff stitches, 1, 2, 3. In the second row, we have 4 puff stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the stitch count will go back and forth like this. The odd numbered rows will have 1 number, depending on how many repeats you've made, and then the even numbered rows will have that same number plus 1 more. So let's go ahead and make row 3, row 3. Lost track of where I was there for a minute. Let's make row 3 together now. I'm going to start with a chain 1, then of course turning back to go the other direction. I will single crochet in the first stitch. That's that double crochet we made at the end there. Let me move that out of the way so it doesn't get confusing there in the background. Then I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and work a puff stitch in the next chain 3 space. So jump right on over and work the puff stitch in that next chain 3 space there. There we are. Then of course we chain 1, and then it's back to our usual repeats on across. Come to the next chain 3 space, single crochet, chain 3, and work a puff stitch back into that chain space. And then of course chain 1 and jump over to the next one. And this can get a little bit tricky, so there's something to remember here that I will point out as soon as I finish this repeat. There we are. Always remember that chain 1, but this is the tricky part. We've got all these chain 3 loops. This one here at the end, remember that was a chain 4. So we don't want to treat this as the other ones. Instead, we're just going to go right into that chain 4 space and work a single crochet, and that finishes row 3. So if we look at row 3, we're back to 1, 2, 3 puff stitches made. And that will help pull our sides in a little bit nice and straight so that we can get our stitch count going here. Now, row 4 is exactly the same as row 2. So you would start with a chain 4 and work back across the other way. And that's the 2-row repeat. Rows, you could consider them rows 2 and 3 or rows 3 and 4. And the reason to consider the repeat being rows 3 and 4 is because in the written pattern, I have you change color every 2 rows. So the first 2 rows would have been in one color, and then rows 3 and 4 in the next color, back and forth as you go. Now, you don't have to change colors every 2 rows. That's just how I wrote the original pattern. If you'd prefer to stick with one color, one yarn, one color changing yarn, however you want to make it, you can absolutely do that. You could add more colors, make it a scrap gan. However you want to make the Dreampuffs blanket, it is up to you. And as I mentioned, you'll find sizing information as well as written instructions and a very simple edging, all available on mooglyblog.com, Dreampuffs blanket. Link is in the description, so I hope you'll check it out. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please do give it a like, let us know what you think in the comments, and please do subscribe to the Moogly blog channel.